I can hear you. All right.
Okay. I think we can just go ahead to just dive into our questions. Thank you, Moyo. Okay, so let's just begin. You're welcome, Mr. Abiola. You're welcome, Mr. Richard, once again. So today's topic, like we've mentioned, is advancing your tech career, insight and unspoken reality. So we've introduced you already, but I don't know. Well, I'll start with you, Mr. Abiola. How did you get to where you are now? You're a staff engineer at Delivery Hero. How was your career progression like? Did you always know you were going to be um, a back-end engineer? Did you try out some things? Like previously, when we speak to other like guests, they usually tell us like stories of how they ventured into something else and then they finally got it right, or so to say. So, want to hear from you.
Thank you very much, Tommy, and thank you for having me. I'm super glad and happy to be here. How did I get to this point in my career? Well, I will start by saying it's God, not in the typical Nigerian fashion, but that's the reality of things. And uh, to be honest, my journey was pretty straightforward. I read computer science in university, so it was like a direct progression or the expected progression to be a software engineer at the end of that. And yeah, I would say me studying computer science also was because of the interest I had right from secondary school, which was around the time when cyber cafes became a thing and websites and games online and things like that. And pretty much like every other software engineer that I know from my generation, we all started by by wanting to build our own games and doing and trying out interactive games and stuff like that, and also doing Microsoft front page to build website and things like that. But anyway, I got into university, studied computer science from the University of Ibadan, and went from there. Started working as a software engineer, and then started progressing. So the journey has been pretty much in that direction from there. So that's sort of like the intro, and I'm conscious of time, so I don't want to get into too much stories.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Richard. Was your story different? For those that don't know, Richard was my senior colleague in school. Was when Yoruba say Egbon Adugo kind of was like our school father then. So how was it? You studied computer engineering too. So was it straightforward for you as well, or did you venture
Uh,
into other things?
okay, all right, thank you. Is my audio clear enough? My
Yes,
audio
it
is
is.
clear enough. All right, great. Sorry, when a battle between devices and connectivity. Yeah. So I think for me, it was an interesting journey.
Okay.
Because I was initially, filled in with electronics, not even, software as it were, more of like transistors and resistors and all of those stuff. And
Okay.
when I got to Ife, I found new hobby basically. So before I left home, I was fiddling with electronics, and like I always make the joke, the only thing I didn't open, the only electronic like gadget in our house that I didn't open before getting to university was our DVD player because our father just got it. Every other thing from TV to anything, I opened them up. So, but for me, software was one of a new hobby. I got to Ife and then I took it on. Um, it was quite interesting because no serious background in computing, no one around to motivate whatsoever because I never had that kind of exposure to computer. And then when I got to Ife, year one course, introduction to computer, and then also how to think like a computer scientist. So this kind of thing, that kind of brought up my interest in computing. And then the rest is story. I went on, you know, head on, fully submerged into it, and became a new hobby for me. So apart from being a computer science student, a computer engineering student, it was actually more of hobby for me when I was in school. So sometimes I'll trade off school stuff for programming. But yeah, eventually, thank God, it paid off. I didn't fail as well. So yeah, so for me, it's been like that. And then after I fair, the rest is, just interesting. Joining Conga to doing all sort of things to where I am right now. I think you guys already spoke about these things already. So
Yes.
yeah, I'm open to um yeah to answer questions that you
Oh,
have.
okay. Thank you so much. So I personally have questions. So I'll just start with my questions while we wait for people to drop their questions. So first of all, what do you think, in your opinion, Abiola, some of the popular mistakes, pitfalls that techies make this, do I say, generation? What are the things you see that you feel, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing this," but then a lot of people are making right now? You can please go ahead.
Well, I think that every generation has this at some point, and then you grow into the next generation and you realize that it was youthful exuberance and youthful thinking. But one of the major, which is also a blessing and a curse at the same time, is thinking you are the best.
Wow.
That's one of the major pitfall that you can actually really have, because it's a blessing in the sense that if you feel or think you are the best, you're going to act and behave like you're the best and walk in that direction. But sadly, when you also think you are the best, it means that you don't leave room for yourself to grow, which is one of the major pitfalls. So now you get into a situation where you are struggling to achieve something and you are reluctant to ask for help or get help or seek help and or collaborate with other people to actually learn and grow together. And then you find yourself stuck in an island where you feel you know everything, but actually you don't really know anything in the
Mm,
sense of it. So that's one of the, and it happens in every single generation. There's no generation where there's nobody that doesn't think that, oh my God, I'm the best. But then you get into other rooms and realize that, oh my God, I actually don't know anything. So
mm.
it's just the way life is and how the generation thinks. But that's the number one pitfall that I see that is the main challenge for software engineers, a lot of programmers in today's world, really. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Richard, any other thoughts? Do you want to add anything to it?
I think you kind of captured the umbrella. I was just gonna go in that direction as well. So yeah, I think that there's not so much to add. The most important thing is don't get too excited. Don't just think you're the best, because at the end of the day you set yourself up for failure, because you almost will stop learning.
Hmm.
I always tell people that the only competition you have is with your yesterday, your yesterday. If you strive to always be better than your yesterday, you progress even without any external motivation, right? So but anytime you see other people around you as competition, then you end up making more mistakes, because you go out of your normal and then you try to enforce things that are not possible, at least from your own capacity. So yeah, basically, yeah, don't stop learning, and don't be so full of yourself, saying you're there, even when you're friends. And again, this goes to how our friends treat us. Sometimes, they hail you, they make you feel like you're the baba, you're dead, alive. That's how guys are, right? They tell you, after you that Jew, after you that government, things like that. Yeah, they just say just for the moment, but don't let those things get into your head, because the most important thing is for you to see yourself as you know as a project that's still continuing, right? Not done. You're not a finished project. You're still kind of still
Hmm.
progressing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So Abiola, there's another question I have here. So given the current challenges in the tech ecosystem, now we have like supply, um, we have more supply than demand. What do I mean? Like now we have lots of tech training centers, a lot of people that want to be techies, a lot of tech training companies that are just churning out a lot of people, 6 months, 6 weeks, 12 weeks programs. And so it seems like we have a lot of people that are waiting to get a job. but unfortunately, it seems like they are still waiting and waiting. How do you think we can, like techies now, like position? How can they position themselves? We have instances of even the seniors now, they are being laid off. Not just in Nigeria, but generally US, Germany, a lot of people are being laid off, and we still have people that are coming up. How can techies position themselves for career growth or for progress generally?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And I feel like a lot of the things we'll be saying today will go back to the same basic answer, or same basic principle. Always keep learning, which is something Richard mentioned earlier, right? Um, of course, there will always, since Andela showed up, there's
Mm,
always going to be that situation of boot camps, and not just in Nigeria, across the world. Boot camps turning people out in 12 weeks, telling you could be a senior engineer in 6 months, whatever that means. Uh, but the what I think you can do, or what would set you apart from the mix of this, is to always keep growing. The truth is, if you are good enough, no one will turn you down,
mm,
and that's the reality. And of course, some seniors are losing jobs and getting laid off. At the end of the day, though I don't want to get into this because it's a bit controversial in the way I think about the level or the seniority in itself. At the end of the day, is just a title. It depends on where you are. That
mm,
they call you senior. Somewhere else, you can be a senior in Amazon and then go to a small startup and they make you a staff engineer, just as for example.
mm,
Does not mean that you're necessarily a staff engineer. You're just a staff engineer at that point. But
mm,
back to the reality of the thing is, you need to keep improving yourself. You need to keep working, putting in the work, whether you have jobs now or you don't have a job, or you are about to get laid off, or you are in a performance improvement process or period of your life. You need to keep improving, keep putting in the work, keep taking on challenging tasks, because at the end of the day, the people that don't get the jobs or the people that get laid off are people who are not necessarily, and this is apart from business reasons now, right? Where you just lay off everybody, but like people that are laid off because of the quality of their work now. You need, if you are taking on complex topics at work, you are solving and delivering solutions, you are putting yourself out there, you are not shy to take on new tasks, whether it is complex, whether you understand the realities, but you are willing to dive into it, and you always come up with solutions. You are going to be really, really hard to lay off. It will be hard for you not to get a job. So that's the fundamental thing. Of course, there are other parts where you need to also know how to interview. For example, you can know the entire thing, that you can be best at whatever it is that you are. And if you don't know how to pass in interviews, you are not going to get the jobs, right? You need to be able to present your ideas in a simple, concise manner. You need to be able to present your solutions in a way that actually triggers thoughts from the person that is asking you the questions. You don't need to give simple, straightforward. I mean, when I say simple, I mean in the terms of the quality of your answer, but be willing to show that you are an expert, so to say, at what you're actually dealing with and at what you are working at. And I think that will put you in a good place to actually stand out in the midst of all this 2 weeks software engineers, 6 months software engineers. That's what I think.
okay, okay. Thank you so much for that. Mr. Richard, I'll just give a different question. So what advice? So I believe you have about like 15 years experience. Well, I'll ask this question. What would you have? What would you tell your younger self, like maybe like 10 years ago, about your career, knowing what you know now? What kind of advice would you give yourself? What kind of mistakes would you not want your younger self to make, like 10 years ago?
Okay, thank you. So I'll probably go 15 years ago, right? Because 10 years ago, just around the corner, right? Just like a few months back. So, but to go back in time, right? I think I would tell myself to, take take more risks. All right, calculated risk and reasonable risk. I mean, obviously, because of my background, coming from a very humble background, I was very careful of every step to be sure, this shiny thing I'm looking at just ahead of me, it's not taken away from me. So I was very careful. Walked away from so many opportunities that were, let's say, a bit risky. And risky in the sense that it was not like gonna hurt me, but it was like had like 50-50 chance or like 60-40 chance or anything. Anything that would give me like 70-30 chance. 70 70, um, chance of survival or being successful, right? And 30, I wasn't taking those options, right? And again, it was not a bad thing. It was just because those decisions actually kept me going up to this point, right? But knowing what I currently know now, I think I'll probably, kind of shift the needle a bit to like 60-40, right? Not just, sticking with 70-30 kind of, success rate or whatever. I'll tell myself to take more risks. Then apart from that, I think I also encourage myself to do a few things more, right? Because I think I got some things right and currently working for me, to learn, every skill that come your way. So keep learning. Like basically, I grab every opportunity to learn. So I think for me, it will be more of take more. I mean, going back in time, take more calculated risks. And there's a lot to this story. This exact line, it's a lot to it. Trust me. I'll probably be maybe somewhere in Silicon Valley right now. Just to give you how heavy it is. Yeah. So probably like Silicon Valley right now if I'm taking those routes. Um, but yeah, I'm in my own Silicon Valley right now. So yeah, so that's just what it is. But yeah, that I think for me that's the most important thing. I think every other I've been so lucky in the sense that I was holding on before I went to university, so I knew exactly what I was doing when I was in university. Every step of the way had was very intentional. When I went for programming, I went head on, but I didn't leave my academics behind. So it
Okay.
was very intentional. I was very intentional. I got into the industry quite early, right? Like I think I started my first job when I was in year three, when I was
Okay.
getting paid. So I was getting paid as a student in year three.
Nice.
I was working with industry experts and building complex systems that were like really, really out of my curriculum when I was in school. Imagine a year three student, building like fingerprint, scanning applications for different devices, from 442 to Hello to facial, all of those kind of systems at year three. I mean, what according to IFE standard, year one is advanced secondary school, and then year two is just getting to know your faculty, and year three is just about getting to your department. So at that level, I was already, interfacing with the industry. So for me, I think that helped me. I would encourage anyone that, if given the opportunity to grab it, right? And because the idea is that that kind of exposed me early enough to the important things, the things that are very important. So I was able to separate what was important from what was not because I was in the industry. I was seeing it on the field. So when I, coming back to my classroom, I knew exactly what I needed to take seriously and not. So it was like that, and I think other thing I would also would like to mention, which just touch on the initial topic, the question of layoff. Just want to touch on it a bit because it's quite important. I don't know. So it's quite important that I touch on that a bit. It's important that you know, like happens sometimes. Sometimes you don't wish things go south, but again, what can you do? You can't do anything. But the most important thing is, when it always happens. There's always the dynamics of things move. You'll be so shocked that the guy that left this company moved to another company where the other guy left to join your company. Like that kind of movement, right? So more like one man's food, the other man's poison. So they lay off one guy because is in quote not doing well, or he or she is not doing well, and then they hire another guy who was fired from the position. This guy who was laid off from this point is going to feel. So I think for me, just speaking to people who have been impacted, impacted by these layoffs, it happened, but don't let that be the end for you because it's always continual. Like you have to keep moving. Ensure that you, like Abiola mentioned, you have to show that you know your stuff, right? the best form of revenge is success, basically. So show that you know your stuff and keep shining. So when you're laid off somewhere, it doesn't mean that at that moment in time for that company, at that time, probably you're not fit for them, but you can move on to becoming something greater. We know people who were later from companies, big, and coming back to become even a bigger asset to that same company. So for me, I think it's more of see it as a positive, development in your life. Grab it, take all the learnings and experience from that, and keep moving. Don't stop, right? Just trying to throw that there so that because I know there are a lot of people right now who are impacted by all of this stuff going on in the industry. It's fine, but don't let it be the end, for you. And for guys who are attending boot camp or becoming senior software engineer in 2 weeks, I'm truly sorry. It's impossible, right? Just try and grab the reality and stop all of this nonsense. You can't be a senior software engineer in 2 weeks or in 2 months, right? And we've been doing this for 15 years, and we're still in the game, we're still learning. So it's okay to start. You can be an engineer, but so I'll give an example. And I think I've been in the industry for a while, either growing talent industry or even building software technologies. I think I've been in the industry to speak to this things. Every year, I take one person and I groom them. So I've been doing this for 3, 4 years now. So every year I'll grab someone, sometimes from the university, and then and grab them and then mentor them through. And one thing I've all right. So and then I move on to groom them, and in 6, 8 months, I see this guy coming out taking us software jobs, and they're doing so well on the job, and they're on their path to becoming a senior software engineer in a way, right? So that 6, 8 months transition is not just 2 weeks, right? This is huge deep dive, and I do that. I've been doing that for 4 years, and I have people who have gone through this process. So please don't be. It's okay to attend those boot camps. Just go there, learn everything you can learn. Like I said, any opportunity you have to learn, learn. But don't relax. It doesn't work that way. When you start, then build on top of that to get to where you want to get.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we are already like halfway our time already, and we've not even gone through the questions I have. But we are having some questions here. Some people are sending in their questions through the anonymous channel. But before we start taking it, what are some of the difficult truths about a tech career journey are often that aren't often discussed? Because what we usually hear now is, oh, tech is very lucrative. I want to be a tech bro and tech sis because I'll be earning in foreign exchange. Even if I'm working remotely, I can earn 5 million and all of that in a month. I can relocate if I'm a tech bro. But the truth is that there are some things that, do I say, are not always publicized a lot, that people forget to think about or to talk about whenever they're having these tech programs, and how to be a techie in 6 months or something. All those boot camps. Is there any one you want to share? Maybe two or three briefly, Mr. Abiola.
Yeah. So it is a very, very interesting question, right? Of course, in tech right now, because of the nature of the world and also where the world is going to, more things are happening in tech. So if the idea that there's money in tech is not something that is going to go away anytime soon. But unfortunately, like every other job, there is a learning curve, because before you get to that money that you that you see people talking about online, there's a learning curve, and you have to grow to get to that point. And that's just the secret. That's the truth there. There's no shortcuts. People, like Richard has said, people work day and night writing code, failing, succeeding, trying and retrying just to get to that point. And the truth is, the only way you can get to that point is by trying, by working hard at it, by investing time. Time is so critical in this matter. You have to actually invest time to actually get to that point where you can say, okay, yeah, I'm comfortable, I'm making the money that is being thrown around. Another truth is that a lot of time you are going to feel like a failure, and that's
Mm.
just the way it is. A lot of times things are going to fail. A lot of times you are going to be in trouble,
Hmm.
not in the sense of having a police case, but there will be times where things will break. Well, it might lead to police cases in some cases, but that's just as an aside. But things will break. You'll be threatened. You'll be you there will be sleepless nights, and it's all just part of the growth process. And
Okay.
I'm actually even of course now, because there are more structure to how things work, to how tech companies generally are. When I was growing, let me give you a very interesting story. When I was starting out, I was working at a university, and then I was working on a payroll system
Wow.
that's supposed to deliver pay slips to employees of the university, right? And then in my code, there's a line of that code of the library I was using that helps you attach
Yeah.
PDFs to email that gets sent out. And there's a line in the configuration of that library that is a boolean, true or false.
Hmm.
And I set it to I can't remember the exact variable now, but the way the variable was named, I felt that it should be true, either true or false. I just said it the way I thought it was going to be. Anyway, that situation led to the entire university. So it was going sequentially, and the every single person on the list got the pay slip of every other person
Wow.
before them, which means that PII information was exposed, salary
Wow.
ranges was exposed. It was that bad. It was a it was a very, very interesting learning experience.
My-
There was riots in quotes, not real riot, but there was riots in the school because some lecturers were getting paid more than their colleagues. I feel like they were doing the same work, things like that, and it was a wild case. But it was also I had a great manager then that helped to navigate that situation properly. But it just goes to show that there would be times like that where you would have situations where you could fail and it could just be within your small scope of things, but sometimes it could also be large and it could be quite problematic. But you have to take those things in stride and work at. And the last one I want to say, which is also related to that, is you would also feel a lot like you don't know anything.
Hmm.
It's just the basic truth. You also feel a lot that you don't know anything. But at those moments, you have to understand that the reason why you are where you are at that point is because you know some things that actually help you get to that point. And the way to go to the next point from where you are is to learn more things. So you keep growing, keep learning, and then you are able to finally get to the destination, whatever that destination is for you.
Okay.
That's what I have to say on that.
Thank you so much. Wow, that was nice. Thank you so much for also sharing that your personal experience. Thank you. So, Mr. Boye, we have another question here. Hmm. How can I measure career progression? So, one of the topics the theme for today's discussion is about career progression, and I think a question here is relating to that. So, how can I measure career progression effectively? What are the practical steps involved? How frequently should I assess my growth? What strategies will help me advance in my career? So, for example, what I used to do was I usually attend interviews like every year when it's around that October, November. I start attending interviews just to have like a sense of um, just to assess myself, kind of, so I'm not just carried away with what my team or my company, the tech stack they're using. So sometimes I try to attend interviews. Okay, I didn't do well. They're asking me questions about this, or I just look through the job descriptions, what they're expecting of candidates, just to like gauge myself. Oh, okay, this is where I stand. And some people they try to compare maybe their friends or colleagues in other companies and all of that. But what do you think is the best way to like judge yourself? Is it because I was promoted to a senior, that means I've arrived? Unlike what Abiola was saying was that being a title is just a title. So how do I like measure my career progression effectively? What are the steps
Uh,
to take? All of that. Briefly, sir.
okay. Um, Great. So just to start from there, I think I love the way Abiola put it earlier. Um, Before action, so to correct him, it used to be title, but now it's a label. Normally title, if you go into the boxing ring, you fight for a title and then you get a title. But now it's just a label. It just like it. So the thing is, so the fact that you are like a senior software engineer, Amazon, could make you a staff engineer of another company, right? Just like you said. So usually, I wouldn't say you use that as your yardstick, because if you find yourself where you become the one-eyed man, right, one-eyed person in the in the land of blind, and you use that as your yardstick, then over time, I've seen people get stuck,
Hmm.
right, because they've grown so big and big in their head that they couldn't go so low elsewhere to get to get other jobs. So, for example, you're in a company where you're going to become a CTO. I'll give an example. Before I left Nigeria, I was offered a job to be a CTO of a company. I
Hmm.
looked at myself and I said, right now I'm not ready to be a CTO, right? And the problem with being a CTO very early in your career is if that CTO does not play out properly, like if it doesn't work out, probably the company for whatever reasons, economic reasons, they survive now, because you already have the CTO, label badge to your to your job, to your name, then when you go to another company and they need to interview, of course, they will interview you as a CTO, right? I mean, at least at that level. So the expectation is already very high, and you don't have everything needed. Again, the CTO is not the most technical person in the company. So to understand, a lot of human management skill and a lot of things going to be in the CTO. So it was not just about my my technical skill, it was more of was I ready for other things outside of the technical side, right? Um, so the way I think you could do, which I think you already mentioned some of that by attending interviews. I think for me it's a bit different. I just take out codility, Akara, some of those things, and just keep playing with this very complex thing. And again, I also try to see to dabble into new areas that naturally are outside of my comfort zone, right? So, for example, we have this. Okay, AI is coming out now. What are the other things you can basically play with? Are you deep diving into computer vision and things like that? So areas you can also sharpen your skill. So how do you know you're actually progressing? One, um, you know when there's always urge to learn new things. So that urge to learn new things, it shows that you're discovering more gaps, right? So the more things you discover you don't know, is is the indicator of growth, right? Because he who knows, I knows that he doesn't know, he's a wise guy, but he
Hmm.
who knows, right? And I think he knows. It's a foolish person. So the more you discover you don't know, you're actually growing. That's the irony of it. So, and being able to pursue more knowledge to become, that person you have in your head, the picture you have in your head, you see that naturally your path will be, completed, and then you'll be moving, right? So you're no longer propelled by things around you, but you're propelled by things within you, basically. So how do you measure it? Just ensure that, I mean, just check how many unknowns between yesterday and now have you discovered about yourself. The more you know about those things and how many are you closing up. So that way. But if you're looking at the labels again, don't be fooled by the labels. Software engineer, senior software engineer, senior CTO engineer, chief, whatever, right? It doesn't work that way, right? At the end of the day, you get stuck. You get a company, you're stuck there, and you can't leave because your next company is not sure. You're not built for that role. You've currently been given you give it the label already, but you're not built for that. So it's like me now giving someone gives me, VP of people management of a company, right? Which I know, right? Naturally, that's not my calling. So when I go to another company and they try to interview me as a VP of people management, equally, I will not pass. Actually, I will not pass because they
Hmm.
will try to go into technical detail of people management, which I just happen to be managing people here because our VP of management ran away, things like that. So you get caught up in that web of thinking you are VP of people management, but it's a lie. You're not. Right? You just happen to be a victim of that circumstance. So these are things you need to look at.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. So we started
Yeah,
getting some
sorry,
questions.
sorry, Toby. I want to add something to what Richard said there. Also another thing that you should check out for is what things are you being offered as well. What are you being offered from work, for example, is a good way to also actually measure.
Okay.
Um, Definitely in every company, if you have a company, if you're working for a company, there are people that when your company needs to solve a complex problem, they
Cool.
immediately invite these people, right? And when they start inviting you to those meetings and to those calls, then you know that okay, I'm actually doing something right. I'm growing in this sense. I'm growing in that sense. So you just keep putting in the work and do everything that Richard has also said as well, and then get to know that okay, yes, there's a bit of progress in what's happening with me.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, there's another question here from the anonymous. Just in case you have more questions, please just use the onlinequestions.org link that we shared earlier. So someone said, which like three other people upvoted, he said, I'm currently a senior engineer, but looking at the ever rapidly changing landscape where being just a backend or being just a front end engineer is simply not enough anymore. How can I remain or maintain relevant and also progress? I find it overwhelming. And so I don't know if you got the question, Mr. Abiola. So please can you?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe I should go this time because I think you're overwhelming Abiola too much. Uh, so I think um, yeah. So I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. Things are changing. You sleep, you wake up, new guy. It just felt like the way this library was not okay. Do something new, and the world is taking it as it is. And after 3 years, someone is coming up with something different, dropping that one. So it's everywhere. I think the most important thing, which I always tell people, is try. I mean, this go back to goes back to the early decisions you made in your career. Don't specialize too early. Try to be very broad and versatile as much as possible. Don't try not to, because what I see people do is that they just say I'm a Laravel engineer, Laravel, backend engineer, Laravel, and they stick with Laravel, and they Laravel. They want to write JS Laravel. They want to write this Laravel, and now when a Laravel goes out of fashion, that they are stuck. I mean, I'm not saying Laravel is a bad, framework. I'm just using that as an example, right? So when Laravel goes after the other fashion, because some people come after it, come from my head. So when Laravel goes out of fashion, right, then you're stuck, right? Things are changing. So at the early stage, I always tell people not to, don't try to specialize early. Be very versatile. Explore. Like I'll give an example. When you're in uni, when you get to university year one, you do all sort of courses. You even go and do in English. Even as a computer engineering student, you go and do something in somewhere. You be wondering what does this have to do with this? So you do that, but you see that the more you grow, you now start focusing, right? Your fifth year, you're focusing, and then you keep on focusing. Now, what you're doing is you're becoming a specialist, right? So no matter how much things change, specialists will always be specialists, right? The concepts will never change. How you do that could differ, right? But those core concepts will never change. So, for
Okay,
example, the guys that wrote the core of Google search engine, right? Take it or leave it. Those guys are still, that knowledge, the core is still there. No matter what sort of white paper everyone is writing right now, the core is still there. So strive to be specialist, but not at the early stage because that will be very harmful to your career. So for people who have made a mistake and specialized within 2, 3 years of their career and saying, I'm just a flutter guy. You're a young guy, you're a flutter guy, and that's all you do. It's a very dangerous path because in
wow.
4 years, you're out of the game, literally. So I'll give you an example. In my case, like I said, I do hardware programming. I was I write firmware. I do hardware programming. I do mobile. I do over 15 years experience. I do all of those things. Not because I'm afraid of losing and what, but it's fun for me anyway. But I'm just kind of over the lessons of the past. If you right now, I can take on a mobile engineer role. I will be there. I'll survive. I'll be fine. Would I go out of market? No. I can shape my ground at any point in time. Just to give you a quick example, when I was at Konga was e-commerce, right? Pure e-commerce. And then Konga was e-commerce. Then I left Konga. I joined Relera, which was an IoT company. There was nothing to IoT and e-commerce, two verticals. Nothing intersected there. I left Relera IoT. I moved to production engineering at Tesla. Again, my job at Tesla had nothing to do with IoT. I moved from that to my new company now where I do payment and do something new. So that just keep yourself right. Ensure that you grow as much as you can so that when you need room to navigate, to cross, you have that, you have enough flesh to help you out. So I'll hand over to Abiola.
Okay. Okay.
Thank-
I think you did just, or do you want to add anything? I'm just looking at the
Yeah,
time.
yes. Let me just see if I can add one or two things to that, and I would stop from where he said. It is absolutely important for you to not box yourself up early. Absolutely, it can't be overemphasized. It cannot be overemphasized. I know people that right now, because finance is I'm building financial
Okay.
system is in vogue. They've been stuck in payments for the last 5 years, 6 years of their career, and I'm pretty sure when that wave goes by, they are going to be very, very sad. And
Hmm.
one thing to add to also that is, as much as possible, something Richard said earlier, that you should take more risk, right? As much as possible in the time or in the scope where you are taking niche topics and doing niche things, always try to still stay relevant with other regular stuff. So while you go in and go do something very, very niche, for example, at work, I was working on a server driven UI framework. I worked on that for probably like 3 years. Now I left and I'm working on something else now. And while I was working on that, it is easy for me to get stuck in that mindset, stuck in that ideology of building that nothing else would matter, and then I wouldn't be able to carry over. And because that experience is very, very niche, the things you learn there is very, very niche. It's very difficult to carry it over somewhere else, and you have to be careful and try to find the balance between experimenting and doing regular stuff that would always be in vogue. So that's just something I want. And the question actually continued, and there are very, very interesting questions that have been added. And please keep adding. And the person said, because honestly, after work they are tired and they want to stay away from their computer as much as possible. Um, if you are young, so I'll preface this with that. If you're a young person, there's no such thing as you're tired. I'm sorry.
Ah,
If you are
but
tired, you are wrong.
me,
If
I'm
you are
not.
tired, you are wrong. That's why I prefaced it with if you are young. If you are young, you can't be tired. I'm sorry. You have to actually push yourself and keep doing the things you need to do. It's not about just picking up new tools or new languages, but continuously learning. And I would go on a limb and say picking out new tools and languages is actually not the way to do it, but rather to be abreast of the core concepts of things. Why do things work the way they work? Is actually what you should go for. And then the tools and languages, they are at the end of the day just tools. They are like toolboxes. If you don't know how to, there's a saying that if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. If you don't know the different ways for things to work, you always find an hammer and a nail to join things together when you could actually saw things differently and just fix them like Lego bricks. And then you have different ways of doing things. So that's all I would just add to that because of our time.
Okay, thank you so much. So, maybe you want to deal with the next question. How do I deal with imposter syndrome? We get this a lot.
That's my favorite topic. So I will start with a story.
Hmm.
When I was working in Nigeria, I was working for, I know many people probably know this or know this company called Iroko TV. If I think they are still existing, but very low key now. I used to work for Iroko TV. And when I entered the room every day, I have this engineers, probably like 7, 8 of us then, and I always felt that I was the person that knows the least in that room, because you have people with different experiences, different knowledges, people that are Google Code Jam experts, and people that have solved Lit code 2,000 times and are like 4 stars on Lit code and things like that. But you have to keep working and improving yourself. That's the best way to deal with imposter syndrome. Eventually, I got comfortable in that space, right? Then I left Nigeria and moved to HelloFresh. It was literally like a fish in an aquarium, getting comfortable in that space and being big enough in an aquarium, then moved into a pond. It
Hmm.
was a different game. I saw guys that sit down, like literally just sit down and discuss software architecture things. And I'm just there like things I've never heard of, considered, thought of, never crossed my mind in terms of how to architect things were just coming up. And I was like, okay, how would I survive here? But the truth is, by the time I was leaving HelloFresh, in the domain I was working at, there is rarely anything that happens there that they will not come and look for me by the time I was living there after 2 years. So it is a situation where, of course, you are going to feel that. Feeling imposter syndrome is literally means you are growing. If you are not growing, you won't feel that way because you know that I'm the best here. The fact that you feel like, oh my God, am I actually good enough for this level I'm in, means that you are actually growing and out of your comfort zone. And like I said earlier, and as we've visited multiple times, the only way to keep feeling great is not to stop. Keep doing the thing that led you to where you are, and that will take you to the next level that you need to be. And that will help you deal with the imposter syndrome. Somebody asked, like, what's the age bracket of this young? I would say if you are less than 25, that's young, and you are
Okay.
not married. Yes. So if you are less than 25, there's no such thing as sleep. When I was at that age, I was probably sleeping 4 hours a day at most. There's always something to work on. There's always new things to learn, new blogs to read, new. Even when I now there are videos. When I started writing code, it was always blog posts and books. That's it. You don't have videos. There's no such thing as videos. Nobody was making any videos. So you actually have to dig in and actually find it out. You don't even have documentations, which was actually really good for us because you actually have to go look in the code to understand what's happening and actually go find the function that you're looking for. Now the readmes that literally list all the functions that a library has. You figure it out and find it back then. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yes, thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Thank you. Richard says he wants to go in some minutes, but we want him to answer one question before he leaves. There's a question here. It says, I work as a backend developer in a setting where there is no senior engineer, and had gotten in as a junior. I had to bear the responsibility of what it, and it's difficult for me to keep up with it. What may I do in this state, please? So it seems like they're just maybe juniors, junior backends, and is having to wear the cap of a senior or a lead kind of. What should he do?
So I think the first thing would be I'll tell that person's on this call, be very careful. Be very, very careful. It's easy for you to get used to doing things the wrong way because they work. Uh, because if you're the only, you're the smartest guy in the room, then be very careful, especially when you know that you're not a senior yet, right? Um, I think the most important thing is you have a good opportunity, right? The position is very right, but how you use it is very important. I would advise that you get mentors, people who are like seniors who you know like ahead of you, to guide you. You are well positioned because if you do so well, you could like really, really like accelerate your career growth right there. But as again, speak cues. So you need to tread carefully, get mentors that would help you, guide you, correct all of those faulty thoughts, correct them in time and tell you reasons why you needed to correct them so that you can transfer these learnings, to all your because to being a senior is not just, being the guy with the number of years. So it's not about so again, one thing is not the number of years experience or whatever. It's not that. It's more about, your team will naturally, respect you and put you in the position of a senior naturally. So even if your label is junior, your team will give you that appellation naturally, and you'll be selected to be a senior, even when the business has not considered you to be a senior. So, so most times you just have to ensure that one, you keep learning and you keep teaching other people what you learned. So have a mentor outside of the company. People will know, people you can trust with your life than they know a lot more than you. learn from there, and come back. The most important part is now teach. So teach again. Some people will feel like, why will you be teaching me? I know more than you. Of course, that will happen. But the important thing is that whatever you learned, transfer. Don't just be the only guy who wants to know everything and own everything. Transfer. That will help you a lot because there you build your people skill, you have to be able to manage and balance emotion, even while trying to transfer knowledge. So all of this thing, like I said, you are well positioned, but you need to be extremely careful of how you use that position.
Thank you so much. Yes, so we have many instances of that, and what people do is just like you said, is to reach out for mentorship. And Data Tech platform, we mentor. We have mentorship slots. We have cohorts where we like assign you to like senior colleagues, for a period of 6 weeks. So if you're on recall and you're not on Data Tech platform, maybe you want to sign up. Thank you so much, Mr. Richard. There, one more question. Someone asked that how did you become an engineering manager? That's Mr. Richard. Was it by chance or did you design that path for yourself?
Okay. Um, okay, so let me start from when I was in university. So I think everywhere I've worked, every company I've worked, I've always led a team. So even while I was in IFE, working as the lead coordinator and team leader of Center of Excellence, I was doing that. I joined Conga, I became a dev manager and then became head of engineering at Conga. So I think for me it's more of it's just I think some of those soft skills will just naturally just pick me and isolate me and pinpoint me and put a needle on my head and then make it happen. I think over the years I found out that that I have that tendency, I have that trait, and I've invested a lot in it. How do I mean? I mean basically investing more in my soft skills, people management skills, trying to see the gaps, trying to
Mm.
fill the gaps, trying to be the shoulder everyone can lean on. You know,
Wow.
my team members would, my team members understand me to be one engineering manager, that would go all the way out to save the life of an engineer. For
Wow.
example, if an engineer is lacking behind on a certain task, I will jump in, find a way to help the person out, or just working with the person to know more, not just trying to, put them down, things like that. So I think I derive joy in uplifting people, and that kind of impacted my muscles because the more you lift, the more muscles you grow, and that's kind of helped me to grow into the engineering manager role. So, and the more you keep lifting, of course, if you go to gym and you see all these lifters, they lift 50 kg, 100 kg. So it's not about how much you push people down, it's how much you lift people up. So the more you lift people, the more growth you have. And that's what helped me to this stage. So without compromising on my technical skill, trust me, if you don't want to battle with my technical skill as well. But again, I just enjoy this part of helping people a lot. That gives me joy. I wake up in the morning to see smiles in the faces of my team members. I think for me, I fulfill for that day, even if I don't write a line of code. You know? So yeah, that's it.
That's really nice to hear. Or do you want to join the company where I work and probably be my engineering manager?
My team members will kill me.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Thank you so much. So I think you want to drop off now. So I think Mr. Abiola will help
Yeah.
answer the questions.
All
Okay.
right.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks. I have to go, guys. I'm very sorry. I have a church program. I'm currently in church for that already, but I just have to attend this also. Like,
We can't hear again.
hello.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes. Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. All right. So sorry, there was a call. So my passion for helping people grow actually, it won't let me sleep at night. So I couldn't let this slip by without having the opportunity to pass on, a few things I've learned all through my career up to this point. So again, I'm very happy to engage and interact with you on any of the platforms. I think I'm on Twitter. I know I'm on Twitter. Sorry, I'm on Twitter. On LinkedIn, you can send me a message as well, and you can reach me through the host. You should direct the questions to me, and I can always follow up with the corresponding discussions. So thank you very much. I really
Thank
appreciate you guys for this opportunity. Abiola, please, I'm going to hand over the mic to you. Do justice to it.
Thank you so much. Thank
All
you.
right, bye guys.
Bye,
Bye.
Richard.
Thank you so much. So I think we have like three more questions to go. Someone says, I'm currently doing my PhD in France, and my official contract um, doesn't permit me to have any other job. Is there any advice you can give me to help me improve my tech skill and build my experience without going against the contract?
What I would say is that you are actually in a really, really nice place because you already earned some money, so you're not doing this just for money in the immediate. Which means that a loophole you can find is to work for free.
Hmm.
Um, and what working for free would do for you is it will help you get those projects that you can actually try your hands on and use that to build your portfolio and build your skills. And it wouldn't necessarily be in the breach of your contract because you're not earning money for it and you're doing it on the side. The problem with EU is when you are trying to earn money while you're doing something else. Nobody would um, find you or sue you for having a hobby and building things and helping people out. It is when it affects your work and you're earning money somewhere else that there's a demand of your time on that because they are expecting to pay you for your time. So jobs necessarily don't pay you just for your skills. They also pay you because you're spending time on that. So that's something you could actually do and explore to find a way to improve your test skills. Just find people that are working on interesting things that interest you. Join them, work with them, build things out, and have fun while doing it. That's what I think.
Okay, thank you. So, in summary, what he's saying is that maybe work on like local like projects that you can maybe have in your portfolio, in your local, how do I say, your repository. So if that means if maybe you're into back end engineering or software, that means you should have like a portfolio on GitHub where you are working on things with your colleagues or friends, and you just
Mm.
have them stored there. At least you can always bring them up or cite them maybe when you are looking for jobs when that contract in quote is over. Um, I think I got you right, Abiola. So I think the next question.
Yes.
Okay. So trying to fetch the next question. Here, when it comes to switching paths within tech, what advice do you give or do you have for a successful transition? How can you manage the fear of being perceived as unfocused or indecisive when changing career path. So we have instances like
Mm.
we've we interviewed some mentors like a while back in a session like similar to this where someone was saying he first tried maybe UI UX and this and a lot of things before he finally figured out what he wanted. But then, do you have any advice for that? And then especially for mids now, that mentor did all of that when he was still starting out. So let's say I have like 10 years experience and I want to, for example, I'm a QA and I want to try out product management. And then after I try out management, it seems like I don't know how to handle people, things like I don't want to offend anyone. How do you think one can manage this situation effectively?
Um, I think that that is always a challenge for everyone. You are trying to move between roles. You don't want it to seem as if you are abandoning the actual one that you have. You are trying out things to experiment with things to figure out what you like. It's the way life is generally, is the way we do things, right? And the my general advice on that is it simply just means, and I think this is something that is out of most people's dictionary these days, you need to put more effort into things, into what you are doing. The reason why anyone will perceive you as unfocused is if they can see that there is a lag in what you are expected to deliver and what you are delivering. But
Okay.
if you are still able to deliver what is expected of you, then you have even more leverage, more room to pursue the things that actually interest you. And if you're already working somewhere, for example, if you're working somewhere, one of the things you can also do is, apart from the things that you are doing on a day to day, you are showing interest in other things as well, and having
Okay.
these conversations with your manager. And they are all, a good manager would help you. A good manager like Richard would help you to actually explore those things while not neglecting what you're actually meant to do. It
Okay.
is always finding balance between the expectations that we actually want from you and the exploring that needs to happen. And I know that sounds like, okay, if it's in the same scope of things. So you, for example, if you are trying to move from QA to software engineer, to like being a backend engineer, it seems quite far off from each other. Or let's say UI UX, that's actually a better example. UI UX, and you want to become a backend engineer, it seemed very far off. You probably won't even be in the space to actually even hear where things are happening for backend, right? What I would advise in that case is to actually take more time out to personally now explore where you're interested, put your hands in where your interest is, and then you'll be able to actually get enough confidence to present yourself as that. And another thing that you could do is, which Richard also mentioned, is taking more risk early.
Wow.
So if you know you are in UI UX and you want to become a backend engineer, that's what your focus is. You apply what I've said, like, okay, you build yourself out, you take time outside of work to actually invest time in yourself, to grow yourself. You have a mentor. And I can't over stress this. Getting a mentor is important, especially even for people that are suffering from imposter syndrome, right? If you have a mentor, they help ground you and give you enough confidence for what you are, because they are not in that same space with you. They can see and they can tell you where you really are and what you need to get to the next level, right? So getting a mentor is key. And with that, you can also find jobs that fit into what you are looking for, and then you can go there. But of course, every one of this that I've said requires sacrifices, and you have to be willing to make them. That's the long and short of it. If sacrificing your time to relax, you have to put more time to actually learn things, sacrificing actually putting yourself out there, saying, okay, I'm going to get a pay cut, even though I'm a senior UI UX now. I have to go and get a job as a junior backend engineer, which might be a little lower than my current salary, but you have to sacrifice to actually get to where you really need to go to.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. So one more question. What are the pros and cons of staying at one company for an extended period versus moving between companies? Are there significant impacts on career growth? So we've seen people that remain in a company for like 15 years, 20 years, while some every 3 years you've seen they've updated their LinkedIn. I'm glad
Mm.
to start a new chapter in my career, things like that. Are there pros and cons? And then, but
Yes.
similar to that, sorry, sir, similar to that, how does working as a freelancer or working remotely or being based in the office affect one's career growth? Are there specific advantages or drawbacks with each? So,
Let me quickly take the first one, and I'll answer this briefly. Staying in one company for longer, or moving around, it depends on the company. If your company allows you to uh, do different things within the company, then it wouldn't matter whether you're moving around or not.
okay,
If your company does not allow that, then moving around is a great way for you to get new experiences, get more exposure to different ways of doing things, get different ideas about how different companies work, which would help you long term, and actually also could help your career progression as well, because you could apply the knowledge from one company, apply, give it to another company, and they see value in that and say, okay, this seems like somebody that will consider for a more senior position because they have the experience. And this is actually even more common when you go from like a really large company to a not so large company. So you bring the experience of working in a large company into this not so large company, giving them structure, giving them ideas which you have learned from the previous company, and then helping them stabilize, giving them some structure, and then they say, oh, this is actually a leader that we could see, and that helps your career progression as well. And working in a smaller company exposes you to different ways of working, different responsibilities that you might not have in a big company. So you have to, at the right time, find a mix and match. And if you are religious, depend on God to help you and guide your step in that direction. And if you're a Christian, follow the leading of the Holy Spirit, and that would be, at the end of it, that's all that we can do.
Okay. Thank you so much. So working remotely, you didn't
Yeah, working remotely and how does it affect your
yes.
freelance? I'm going to give you freelance is great, but there's a lack of a structure, and how that can negatively the con I see in that, what freelancing allows you, the pro for that is that you get experience on different things, but the con is that companies will not know how to value you.
Hmm.
So the truth is, when interviews, before you get into an interview, the person looking at your CV already knows where they think that you fit in. That's the truth. In all the interviews I've done, if you like put vice president of engineering, I will look at the company, look at the roles, look at what you said you've done, and in my mind, determine where you fit in into our company. That's the truth. So when you are going to those interviews, the person already knows where you fit in. Being a freelance, also, this is also based on your previous experience that you list, right? Being a freelance engineer makes it really difficult to place you, which means that you might get lower than what you should be getting. And interviews can be annoying because you will get into an interview and somebody's asking you a basic question because they have decided or evaluated you as a junior engineer, where based on your actual experience you're actually a senior engineer, and that would just create a mismatch and would not be satisfactory. So I always give the advice that as much as you freelance, the best thing to actually do is to find a situation where it is where you could freelance on the side and actually have like a day job as well on the side. It doesn't matter what the day job is. It gives you some sort of structure that helps you in your progression.
Okay. Thank you so much. So someone says you mentioned that we should not specialize too early. But as an early backend engineer who wants to go very deep into backend development, is it okay to stay as a backend while studying very deep into it?
So I think the person got what Richard was saying wrong.
Yes.
He didn't say don't specialize too early in terms of moving from, oh, I'm a backend engineer and I want to remain a backend engineer. That I've let me give you an example. When I started working, I started out as a full stack engineer. The reason I became a full-time backend engineer was because I realized that the amount of work it requires for me to actually build front end the way I want it to be, where I want it to look, is not. I wasn't willing to give that time. Was why I decided not to continue as a full stack, but then focus on backend. You have to. There are two things there. You have to first decide where you want to be and say, okay, now I'm a backend engineer. This is what I want to do. Then don't over specialize as a backend engineer.
Okay.
Not that you are deciding that, okay, I'm already a backend engineer, but let me try out front end, let me try out this, and let me not specialize as a backend engineer, but let me do front end as a side. You have to decide whether you want to be a full stack engineer or a backend engineer or a front end engineer or a mobile engineer early, and then in that space, in that discipline, as it were, then is where you explore within that box.
Okay.
Structure and boxes gives us freedom and independence to actually do things within the box. So you are not essentially limiting yourself, but you are actually exploring within that discipline that you've decided on.
Okay.
That's the key. But at the very, very start, you have to explore everything. Are you better as a front end engineer than a back end engineer or a full stack engineer, as the case may be? Are you good in everything and you do everything? Then you can then say, okay, I'm a full stack guy, which means your work is more and you have to explore front end properly and dive deep into front end and come back out, and dive into deep into back end and come back out, and dive deep into mobile and come back out, and do some UI UX on the side as well.
Okay. Thank you so much. So we have last question. I'm an intermediate UI UX designer and I've been applying for internship, but all are not fruitful and I'm getting tired and frustrated. What can I do? I think you have to continue trying because except you have maybe an option somewhere. But if you know that this is what you want to do, or maybe Mr. Abiola wants to share maybe some stories, challenges you might have faced.
Um, I think how did you define, and this will sound harsh, how did you define yourself as an intermediate UI UX designer? Is the first thing you should find out. Who gave you that title or label? Is it something you labeled yourself or something that was given to you? Because the truth is, internships are hard. So I would advise, and internships are roles that are really limited by design.
Yes.
Most companies want to hire probably 1 or 2 interns per year. That makes it a role that you have to be extremely good to get. And unfortunately, in 2024, the definition of an intern has unfortunately changed, and companies just use that as a label to pay less or not pay at all for good work, unfortunately. So, 2 things. First, are you good enough? Because I don't like the label of the intermediate that you called yourself. So get better, keep improving, keep working hard, keep improving yourself, keep proving yourself as well. And then when you get to a level, as you're getting better, keep applying, keep trying. One of them would definitely see the work that you've been doing as you are building your portfolio, as you are speaking consistently with your mentor, trying to get advice on where you are, what you need to do to take it to the next step. One of them will definitely open up. Or even maybe you won't have to get an internship, but get an actual job. Maybe what you need is actually not an internship, but get an actual job and say, okay, I'm a junior UI UX designer, and start from there. Which is why I said, who gave you that label? Maybe you're looking for the wrong job. Maybe that's even what the problem is. So speak to somebody, get help, understand where you are and where you need to go and what you need to do to get to where you need to go.
Yes. Thank you so much. You really addressed that. So, Amzat, maybe you want to speak. I believe you are one of the mentees on Ladder Tech platform. So, speak to your mentee, your mentor, share your profile. What am I doing wrong? How am my application, job application? What am I doing wrong? Let them assess you and provide enough guidance that you need. Thank you so much, Mr. Abiola. I don't know if anyone has any question. Mr. Abiola, any last words? Maybe a 3-point agenda, 7 point, 5 points, that
Um,
the closing remark.
yeah, thank you very much, Tommy. I think to close, I would say that advancing your tech career and is not is not something to take as or see as a difficult thing. There are things that you could do. There are well laid down principles that you can apply that would always take you higher, that would always help you advance in your tech career. And the number one thing is to never stop learning. That's the number one thing. It is easy to get to a place where you feel like, oh, I know everything, but you really don't. Never stop learning. That's the number one thing. And the number two thing, which is something someone told me a long time ago, which has helped me, wherever you find yourself, whether you have a job or not, always think of these 3 things in what you're doing to advance your tech career: the complexity of what you're working on, the impact of what you're working on, and the visibility of what you're working on. If what you're working on is not, always try to get those 3 things in everything you are doing. If what you're working on is not visible, nobody would know, nobody would consider you for the next level of your tech career. If what you are doing does not have any impact, it won't create enough noise for it to be visible. And if it is not complex enough, it will be seen as you are just doing something regular. So always, in everything you do, optimize for that. And that would help in advancing your career. And lastly, which would be firstly, you have to depend on God for a lot of things. God is key in everything we do, and you have to keep that in mind. You can't just go around the world willy-nilly. You have to actually hand off your direction, your path to God, and let him help you. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much, Tommy.
Thank you so much for having us, for answering our questions and being available and willing to share from your experience. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone that joined.